Okay, Taskmaster. How are we gonna adapt him?
Okay, he's a wisecracking assassin, can copy any fighting style, and has gone toe-to-toe with Captain America.
Oh, wisecracking. Let's make him mute.
Okay, so his suit, usually a skull mask with a great cowl and cape, and I'm thinking...
Over-design, and I was like, bullshit, of course, like you're reading my mind.
I know you.
Hold on.
So Taskmaster survives the end of Black Widow, but they want him in Thunderbolts. Do we create a story arc that's more in line with the character?
Nah, let's just kill him off, like, immediately.
Genius.
This is outrageous. He is a beloved character with a rich history and an already great design. Shouldn't we, I don't know, respect that and give the fans what they deserve? Psych. Man. Oh man, you had me going there for a second, man. These idiots will watch anything. The way the MCU adapts characters is something that needs to be studied. They take a character, either beloved or more obscure, and just kind of make them worse. In more small and subtle ways with Baron Zemo's design, or in more obvious ways with this abomination they want me to call MODOK. Marvel seems to be a bit cowardly when it comes to faithfully adapting the source material. They rely a little too much on improvising everything, and that leads to a character like Taskmaster. You pick a villain or hero, flatten them as far as you can, take what little iconography you need to make people go like, and put them in a mediocre, over-designed suit. I get what they're going for here, but we need more capes and cloaks in these movies, man. I can make a video for so many characters like this. If you'd want to see that, let me know. But right now, Hulk is top of mind. As we had something good earlier on, they went the lazy route to make Endgame work. Marvel just keeps improvising as they go along and patching things together later. Well, there is a funny guy named Taskmaster that's a fan favorite. How about we make her a mute villain with no personality, and instead of focusing on highlighting on the one thing Taskmaster has, is photogenic memory. We'll instead give her some sci-fi bullshit brain chip, this fugly ass helmet, and make her move like a generic Terminator. How many generic, cold-blooded killer assassins do we need? Like, you could have used someone nobody cares about like Spy Master. It's just complete ass. And after Black Widow ends, she's free from the mind control. You could have given her a personality, a story arc, something to make her interesting. But no, she just gets killed off in Thunderbolts in the most disrespectful way possible. And while it works for the movie, it's such a disservice to the character. I'll say this though, this is not one of those videos where I say the word woke a million times and spend 90% of it bitching about the fact that they made Taskmaster a woman. I could care less, and if it was done differently, it could have worked better for me. This is me going through what Taskmaster has been like in the comics, his highlights, backstory, just overall giving you a picture of what I like about him and hopefully what you will like about him too. I still love the MCU at the end of the day, and will defend them when the slander gets a little too outrageous, but here's how Marvel absolutely wasted Taskmaster. Taskmaster, or Tony Masters, first appeared in Avengers 195. Then we get his backstory in 196, drawn by the great George Perez. If you're familiar with the character, you get the gist. He's a mercenary who's born with a photographic memory, able to copy any sort of martial art, weapon skills, and even athletic skills. He watched one football game and became his high school's quarterback right after. Now, none of this should be a surprise, as we got the ability in the movies, kind of, even though they needlessly complicated it with a brain chip and that fuck-ass helmet. Overall, I can't really be mad. What's important to know is how he speaks. Taskmaster, like a lot of comic characters, has his dialogue written in a way where you assume an accent. Personally, because his name is Tony, I just think Italian New Yorker. But regardless of the fact, the dude is funny. His first few bits of dialogue has him saying shit like shuggy and sweets. He tells Wasp that she and the others will make the perfect visual for his next class, Dismemberment 101. Now throughout this video, you'll see his comedic side shine more and more. However, imagine my surprise when the movies who are famous for quippy dialogue and comedic moments chose to turn this guy into a mute with a horrific and tragic backstory. Taskmaster, while a killer, is a pretty lighthearted character most of the time. Of course, you can take comedic characters and make them darker and more dramatic, which we'll get into later. However, when you take away that part of their personality and give them no personality, that kinda sucks. The second big part of Taskmaster, which often isn't talked about too much, is him being a teacher, which should be obvious given his name, but whatever. He just wants to make the most amount of money possible with the least amount of heat. So he likes to secretly train all these villains and give them the skills of the heroes they fight, like Spider-Man, Captain America, or Iron Fist, which is incredibly useful. Now you should read the rest of his appearance here. Here's my favorite thing villains should always do, which is to say fuck this shit and get out of there. He even calls Jocasta baby buns, which furthers my idea that that he should have an Italian New Yorker accent. Now, skipping ahead, an important part and somewhat tragic is that he has to forget memories he has of his real life to store the skills he acquires, which means he has a finite cap on what he can actually do. If someone has a new fighting style, in order for him to copy it, he'd have to forget something like Captain America's shield throwing or Spider-Man's gymnastics. While that may be sad, the benefits vastly outweigh the small drawback, for a mercenary at least. For a human being who needs friends, family, and a life, it kinda sucks. In Taskmaster 2010, issue 2, we get this really cool look into his psyche. Tony narrates, "You're walking down a street and think, do I take a left here or keep going? Then it hits you like a kick to the gut. Keep going where? Where am I coming from? Who am I?" We see Tony confused and lost, and then we see him fake his way through a conversation of someone who clearly recognizes him. "I'm a master of intimate sounding, utterly superficial chit-chat, and I wear a mask 24/7 so people can't read my expression to tell when I'm surprised, which is most of the time." Taskmaster, while being able to retain almost anything, cannot remember a single thing about his life and is in a constant state of confusion. The next page explains how when he sees a payphone, he has this muscle memory to call someone, that someone being the org. He tells them, "I don't know who I am," and they say, "No reason for you to. The org knows." The org is a surrogate memory, and it's how he's able to function with very little personal information. Remember this for later in the video, as this 4-issue run ends in such a fantastic way and I want to save the best for last. However, if you're like me and you were pissed about how easy it was for Taskmaster to die in the MCU, let's talk about some insane moments, feats, the highlights of Taskmaster. Now, like most comic characters, Taskmaster has some crazy durability. The MCU had the mask be so weak that a pistol was able to go through it, killing her. However, Tony was able to tank a sniper rifle to the chest in the comics and still be able to fight. You can't be one of the world's greatest fighters if you got a papier-mâché mask that can't block shit. Not only is his iconic skull mask way cooler looking here, but he's also able to get blown up by a grenade and again still be alive. What's even more insane is that Miles Morales' Spider-Man was able to venom punch this guy, and he was still talking shit after that. I know durability isn't the most impressive thing, as every single enhanced human or even regular human character is super tough, so let's look at his combat feats. Karnak is an inhuman with a really dope power set and an even doper design. He can see the flaw in everything, meaning physical, emotional, psychological, whatever. They call him the Shatterer. He can even use this to shatter one's beliefs, and on top of that, he spent years training at a place called the Tower of Wisdom, so he is not to be fucked with. Imagine my surprise, however, in Secret Warriors 2017, issue 4, we get to this exchange. Taskmaster says to Karnak that he's been waiting to fight him for years, and Karnak just calls him a sad person. However, right after that, on the page after the next, Taskmaster just knees him in the head and downs him instantly, essentially one-shotting the inhuman designed to fight. How embarrassing. What's even worse is that after a while, when everyone gets captured, I figured Karnak would help the team escape, find a weakness in the enemy, break the restraints, something. But no, he lets the 10-year-old Moon Girl do all the work for him while he's still unconscious and has to get smacked awake. Generational shame, man. Now I know I just glazed Spidey in the last video, but I gotta bring up an older comic to really put in perspective how busted Taskmaster can be. So this is Marvel Team Up 103. Peter is sneaking around this evil lair, and as he thinks he'll finally get some answers, he realizes he just walked into a trap, one set by Taskmaster. You see, Taskmaster prides himself as a teacher, and what better way to teach his students than to get a real-life hero to fight. He says, "Today, I'm going to show my graduating class that superheroes ain't as tough as they're cracked up to be." Basically, he's calling you a bitch, Peter, so you better step up. Spider-Man realizes this and goes to punch him, which he doesn't even flinch, just lets Peter's momentum knock him into the shield. Thankfully, Spider-Man recovers quickly and kicks him. Taskmaster recovers as well, almost like he's copying him. Spider-Man tries swinging around, but Taskmaster makes a Captain America move to cut his web. Peter then tries to net him with a web, but then he pulls a Black Knight move to bypass it. It's getting rough for Peter. All these people are watching you lose to this guy. Now after Taskmaster tries this judo move, Spider-Man has had enough and says, "You can copy fighting styles, but there is no way you can copy my strength," which is correct. Unfortunately for Peter though, Taskmaster has been watching Daredevil a little too much, and he throws a regular cane at the wall, ricocheting across the room and eventually hitting Spider-Man right at the back of his head. Now this is an older comic, so I don't think this could happen today, but Jesus Christ, Peter, the guy tells you his move, and instead of moving out of the way, you let it hit you. On top of that, his spider sense took the day off, I guess, cause this should have been an easy dodge here. Taskmaster then says, "You see, class, these jokers in the costumes ain't all that awesome when you know how to handle them." Sheesh, this is pretty bad, but if you've been watching this channel for a while, you'd know how much I love to dunk on a certain character. Frank Castle, the bummiest dude in NYC, despite the fact that he has no powers, any exceptional training, or mental aptitude, he somehow has insanely stupid plot armor. Well, let me be the bearer of great news. That is not happening today. This is Deadpool vs. Punisher issue 4. Taskmaster and Frank are fighting. Doesn't matter why, comic book shit. Frank tells him, "Taskmaster, huh? Heard you were a joke." Ouch. Being called a joke from this guy? That's gotta sting. Taskmaster misses 2 attacks and then gets thrown to the wall. He recovers by kneeing Frank in the chest and then disarms his knife. Taskmaster palms this guy's face as he was telling him why he doesn't go for guns. Then he dodges a right hook effortlessly and says, "This way is much more fun, to study a man's strengths, his weaknesses, and use the former to exploit the latter. Special forces can tell just by the way you move." Taskmaster, always trying to learn new fighting styles, is just having fun here. It was said earlier they've been fighting for a long time, but only after Punisher calls Taskmaster a joke does it start to get wicked. Frank gets kneed in the back, then thrown on the ground, as he tries to rationalize how Taskmaster knows his fighting style of special forces. Punisher rolls backward to dodge the slam move, and just takes one right under the chin as Tony says, "You move in quick, don't let a guy get his bearings. Overwhelm his defenses with quick devastating strikes." And then, once he's reeling, the coup de grace. And we just see panel after panel the most disrespectful punches, kicks, and elbows, all leading up to a knee to the chin. As Frank gets his shit rocked, Tony reads him like a book. Makes sense, a guy like you who's just meat and brains and bone, trying to look like a hard ass in a world full of rock people and winged gods. He knows Frank has to overcompensate without any powers, and has to act a certain way to deter people from trying him, because if they do, and I mean really any D-lister with powers, the Punisher is donezo. While all of this is so incredibly embarrassing for Frank, this final nail in the coffin does it for me. Let me ask you a question, Castle. If I'm such a joke, why don't I hear you laughing? Huh? No? Didn't think so. Oof, god damn, I love to see Punisher lose, it makes my day. Unfortunately, this issue ends with Deadpool coming in to save the day. While Taskmaster actually dogs the fuck out of Wade, Punisher wakes up and they 2v1 him like some punk ass bitches. Run the ones, you cowards! He was holding his own there too for a moment, but he gets knocked off the side of the ship, and this little brat cuts his ladder, letting him fall into the ocean. Now I could sit here all day and tell you how cold Taskmaster is. He has way more impressive feats. These are just the ones that I think are really cool. However, what I find more interesting is his personal story. While he doesn't remember much of it, I hope you remember the bit I said before about Taskmaster 2010, because we're getting right back into it. This is Taskmaster 2010, a rare look into the world of a mercenary from the perspective of the man himself, Tony Masters. Now I spoke about issue 2 as it has the neat bit of character work explaining how he operates as a man with virtually no personal memories. However, let's rewind back to issue 1, and they'll need to explain a few things so the later chapters make sense. In issue 1, we start at this diner where Tony Masters, out of costume, and with no sense of where he really is talking to this waitress, Mercedes. While they're chopping it up, we see various teams outside waiting for the right time to strike, to collect a bounty on Taskmaster. We got AIM, Hydra, and so many more. This is the engine of the story. There was a $1 billion bounty on his head, and even though Taskmaster trained all these guys, they're still villains at the end of the day, and we'll try to cash that shit in. Tony gets tipped off by a former student who wants to kill him with dignity and tells him to put on his suit. Then his former student, who is a Hydra member, reminisces on their histories together, but unfortunately Tony cannot remember it. Just as Mercedes comes out of the kitchen, it's time for all the mercenaries to do their job, and Tony effortlessly disarms his former student and goes to work. All the organizations start fighting each other, trying to reach Taskmaster, and he just embarrasses them. We see Mercedes escape the diner, and then he accesses this AIM tech to see what they have on him. And when Mercedes walks into her apartment to find these goobers called the Inquisition, Taskmaster saves her life, telling her that now she's been attached to the bounty just for associating with him. Okay, so in issue 2, we see Mercedes and Tony are in this dope chase scene, where these skull guys chase down the pair and Mercedes low-key is booking it. After escaping them, they get onto a plane, which crash lands right into the skull guy's secret base. Plot twist is, this dude's name is Dawn of the Dead, and even though Tony can't remember him, Taskmaster once knew him. The head honcho explains how Taskmaster's training helped him so much, and how he's going to offer him sanctuary while everyone else is looking for him. Tony enters this temple where he gets a memory back of how he chose the skull helmet. It was in honor of Santa Muerte, Senora de las Sombras, essentially Lady Death. When he comes back outside, they're trying to kill Mercedes, as they need something to show the org so they can get the bounty. Taskmaster, in all his wisdom, barters for her, saying he'll do a huge favor in order to save her life. He'll fill in for their missing guitarist. What a sacrifice. We see them play and Mercedes is being held up outside. Now what's crazy is that she knocks out the skull guy, grabs his gun, and lights him up, unbeknownst to the band playing inside as their music is too loud. Right as they're about to hit the solo, Mercedes, the MVP, comes in on this truck, crashing the party and saving Tony. Later, as the chase sequence happens, Tony unmasks the Dawn of the Dead, and it's some gringo. He tells Tony, "Hey, why are you judging me? I'm ex-SHIELD just like you," which is news to Taskmaster. Dawn thinks he's playing dumb and continues, but right before Taskmaster can get some crucial info out of him, the car gets his tire shot and Dawn falls to his death. Tony just kneels and mutters, "I wasn't done with." Damn. I really feel for the guy here. This melancholic mood continues and Mercedes is like, "You've been less of a wisecrack since we escaped the Dawn." Taskmaster tells her he's just now realizing he never goes to a hospital when he forgets, doesn't go to the cops. It's almost as if instinctually he knows he's guilty of something, not just training villains but something worse. Mercedes tries to lift his spirits and says, "The Dawn said you were ex-SHIELD, means you were a good guy once." Tony solemnly says that she's one of the good ones, and that's why he can't have her be swallowed up by this. He continues, "But me? Different story. I can change allegiance as many times as I want. If I always revert back to default factory settings, it don't mean squat." Tony has no personal memories, principles, any real friends, at least those he remembers. He's barely a step removed from a clone assassin type, with no identity and constantly struggling to be a person. We then see Taskmaster take out some guards as Mercedes watches. He narrates instincts. We see Mercedes make a call. She says he's on the brink of remembering everything. Taskmaster's narration continues. It's good to have instincts, except when they're wrong. And we see that Agent Mercedes is actually talking to Nick Fury. Dun dun dun. So this whole time I was wondering, how the fuck did she take out a cartel member, not only survive one shootout, but two, and a plane crash? Of course she's actually a mole. Which makes it all the more tragic for Tony because in issue 3 we start with him saying, "I think I love you." Ouch, dude falls for a woman who's actually a secret SHIELD agent. Now Mercedes tries telling him to cut it out, but he says who knows, he might forget he ever felt this way and it's important to get it out now. He feels like their connection goes a lot deeper than the time they've actually known each other. Just as they continue to talk about why he's falling for her, they stumble across Hitler Town. I'm not kidding. Of course they start firing at Taskmaster and he pulls out a Captain America move to protect Mercedes, and honestly I love how they overlay his pose with the pose of the guy he's copying. We even get to see some more obscure characters too, like Blazing Skull, which seems like a Ghost Rider ripoff. After they get saved by one of these natives dressed up like Nazis, Mercedes is baffled at how Tony can remember so many languages and speak with these guys, down to their specific accents. How can Taskmaster instantly recall the information but not know your wife's name, or if you've even been married? Taskmaster explains that there's two types of memories, explicit and implicit. The memory of an experience is explicit, but the abstract information you learn from that experience is implicit. Like, I can remember the chemical symbol for water, but not that time in chemistry class when I actually learned it. Now, after some action bits and an interlude of Nick Fury explaining how this Nazi utopia in South America came to be, we see our duo escape through a tunnel, and Taskmaster remembers being here, just as Nick Fury is explaining the same story. Tony Masters, the SHIELD agent, got this Nazi super memory serum in the same room they're sitting in. Just as his partner warns him of the giant explosion coming their way, he injects the serum, gaining his powers. Mercedes explains that because of all the Nazi brains around them and the juices getting into the water supply, it's caused the native people to become wacko Nazis. Tony contemplates that decision to inject himself and says he ruined his whole damn life. Mercedes says no, you can be a good guy, you can change, and Tony has no faith in himself if he can't even remember his sins. Then Mercedes says, "No reason for you to, the org knows." Tony looks up and says, "What did you say?" Mercedes says again, "The org knows." And we get that same flashback of Tony at the payphone remembering the voice who said the same thing to him then. The org knows. His eyes widen as he realizes something, and on the next page we see Nick Fury explain that same thing, that Tony has always been a good guy, he just keeps forgetting that. Cap asks why the hell does he keep trying to kill us, and Nick says it's his handler who aims and fires him. Well, who is his handler? Taskmaster then shoots Mercedes as he's figured out what we already knew. Mercedes works for the org, but something unexpected happens. Instead of an evil villain monologue or a costume change or even some backup, Mercedes just cries. She says, "Every time it happens, it still gets me. You really don't remember who I am?" And Tony just says, "Who are you?" Then we get the most insane plot twist. Mercedes is Tony's wife. Damn, that is intense. To live an entire life with someone and because of some knockoff super soldier serum you lose your husband. Ouch. Originally, I was going to skip issue 4 and just end it off here, but I think it'd be criminal if I didn't finish the story as its ending hit me like a truck. I've skipped over a few things in the previous issue that has to do with the more action-heavy plot. It doesn't matter too much as the Avengers are coming in to stop the big bad. This dude named Redshirt and his evil organization, Minions International Liberation Front, or MILF for short. Focusing on our duo here, Tony and Mercedes have a heated discussion as he's pissed at her for not telling him sooner and just letting him believe whatever. She explains the plot of how Redshirt planted a device, how she got a job at the diner in his first memory, and how they can take down this threat. Taskmaster isn't satisfied as he feels like she's still hiding something, but she says that she's out of secrets. Just as Redshirt storms their base, she tells him to give her the gun so she can fight with him. Taskmaster says, "Give me one good reason." And she's like, dude, 2 people fighting is better than 1. He says, "Not what I meant." Damn, he was contemplating killing her. I mean, I can't imagine the level of confusion and pain you must feel all the time, dude. Eventually, Tony trusts his instincts and they get to work. Taskmaster sneaks around, uses daredevil moves, Mercedes lights up these goons, and as they fight together, Tony remembers her, their past as trainees, on the helicarrier, their first date, and even their wedding song, Heroes and Villains by the Beach Boys, which is the song that Tony kept playing over and over again in issue 1 at the diner. Just as they're getting back to the way they were, where they're supposed to be, Redshirt comes flying in, kicking Taskmaster and the brawl. Redshirt explains all the training and body modification he's done to become this great fighter. Just as Redshirt is beating the snot out of Taskmaster, Mercedes roots for him, telling him to try. Tony just says, "But then it'll override us. I don't want to forget you, ever again." Mercedes, heartbroken at that statement, knows she has to do something and tries to attack Redshirt, but he puts her down very easily. And as Taskmaster tries to fight him without absorbing new skills, he misses and says, "Fuck it, how about every single fighting style," and just dogs the fuck out of Redshirt, killing him with his own move. That's what I'm talking about. Mercedes says, "Thank you, you absorbed just enough to surprise him, but not enough to erase any other memories, right? I mean, you know who I am, right? Right? Tony?" As we just see Taskmaster ashamed and confused, put his cowl up and runs off into the darkness. Mercedes kneels down, back into the place she always is, heartbroken and mourning a man that's still alive. However, Mercedes, although not able to convince Tony to trust her, still has a responsibility to protect him, and just as the Avengers arrive after the battle is over, she leaves a tape for them explaining why Taskmaster is the way he is. He constantly loses his memory, but retains this illusion of truth that he's done something bad. That always leads him towards villainy. Mercedes has to be the one to change him. She's tried explaining to him so many times that guilt he feels, that instinct that he's done something unforgivable, is him taking the serum to be the best, and abandoning his wife in the process. Every time she sees him forget her, it's like watching herself die. She explains that she's never coming in again to S.H.I.E.L.D., and that she'll continue to handle him, direct him to do good, because he is her husband, and she will not do to him what he did to her. Then we see the same conversation we saw in issue 2, Tony calling the org, and we see how it was always Mercedes who answers that call, and it always will be. Damn, that was heartbreaking. I came into this video expecting just to go over some hype moments and funny lines. However, Taskmaster is such a tragic figure. He's an incredibly compelling cautionary tale of how the pursuit of success can cause you to lose focus, or in this case, lose it all. In 4 short issues, Van lent and piloted so much, man. There's a lot of other entertaining bits here and there, and some callbacks that make the ending hit even harder. I didn't want to overwhelm this video with too much, however, so maybe another time. Now, I wanted to also go over Avengers Initiative, because Taskmaster really holds his own against not 1, but 2 Captain Americas, and also Taskmaster 2020 because Hyperion shows up and they beat him with kryptonite. I know I'm not the biggest Marvel guy, but I had no clue they had their own version of kryptonite. I guess all these Superman knockoffs need their own version and Marvel has Argonite. I really hope you guys see what I mean about Taskmaster. I know the movies are always going to be loose adaptations, but I just wish they gave us something. The closest we got was an interview with the Thunderbolts team where they're originally planning on keeping her alive, and the running bit is she'd keep forgetting which side she's on and try to kill a team again and again. Honestly, I'd love to see that. Very in line with Taskmaster. I think they could always do him again after Secret Wars. I just need them to be more intentional with the character they put in their movies. MODOK, Taskmaster, and the dripless side Sidewinder could have been replaced with any generic henchman type. I'm going to ease up on the MCU as plenty of other channels do that enough, but let me know what you guys think of Taskmaster. Did you like his appearance in the movies, and what would you like to see him in next? Another huge shout out to my boy Cable for being a member of the original 7, and the other members listed here. I should have a new members only video up soon. The next video is a bit of a toss up. I have a few ideas. I was thinking of making a Rorschach, the worst detective in comics, or even a Supergirl video in honor of the movie coming out soon. Let me know what you guys would like to see next. Alrighty y'all, peace.